Every culture on the planet has its own unique rituals and routines. However, some are more, let's say, extreme than others. Let's take a look at the first photo. Scarification rituals. It's 4000 BC, and in Africa, a tribe is using rocks to scar the skin of a young boy. It's an intricate pattern, a series of hatches and crosses. It kind of looks a little bit like they're about to play tic-tac-toe, but with more blood. What you just witnessed was a scarification ritual, an extremely painful process of mutilation, an ancient tradition that means a whole lot more than an abuse lawsuit. The tribe is simply marking what's theirs. This boy belongs to their community, and they want to know that just from looking at him. These markings represent the grouping of a tribe, the age, life experiences, sexual maturity of the boy. It's a pre-tech QR code that contains everything. But this tradition is still around today. Tribes all over Africa continue to mark their young, believing that it's an easy and consistent way to identify friends from foes. It also happens to look pretty intimidating. In Sudan, the Dinka community uses their forehead scars to identify their clan membership and leaders, something that we in the West would do with much less painful name tags. But the Nuba people mark prepubescent girls on their foreheads, chests, and abdomens to celebrate their coming of age, giving them extra pains to deal with in addition to their natural transition into womanhood. Every community has different reasons for it, but all of them are rooted in communicating ideas without just, saying them. But of course, it's not popular. In many regions of Africa, scarification has been wiped out because of the increase of Western ideals, but also because, people are concerned about the health risks of ripping flesh with a dirty, disease-ridden rock. Even governments have stepped in to shut the whole thing down, believing that it contributes to tribalism. Fire walking ritual. In any normal situation, if you see fire, you want to run in the opposite direction. But in this case, people often pay for the opportunity to run directly into the flames. Firewalking is said to be one of the most enlightening things you can do, if only because you will learn never to walk over fire again. People who perform firewalking often turn it into a very spiritual experience. They fast, pray, or abstain from certain things for days before to mentally and physically prepare themselves for the challenge. In some traditions, like on Reunion Island, elaborate offerings and rituals are performed before the actual firewalk. I mean, you have to do what you can to try and get the gods on your side so you don't, burn. Then it's time. And by that, I mean time to walk across a bed of hot coals or stones, which are anywhere between 240 and 450 degrees Celsius. If you hesitate or stop even for a second, the skin on your feet will burn right up, making it excruciating to walk. But it'll cook your feet to a delicious medium rare. By the time they reach the other side, the walker often describes a sense of empowerment or even a full spiritual awakening. They've lost a few layers of flesh on their feet, but they have a new understanding of what it all means. See, there's 1,000 reasons people do this all over the world, but the biggest one is simply enlightenment. People want to understand themselves, life, God, existence. But mostly, they just want to see if they could do it without being cooked. Baby tossing ceremony. Now, I'll level with you. This appears to be a pretty concerning image of a child being dangled over and thrown from a large height. Yes, that's exactly what's happening here. Let's say you're in a rural area of India, taking in the local culture when you see a bearded man holding a baby over the edge of the building. He yeets the little guy right over, and you think, oh my god, I'm gonna be on the news. But it's okay. It's okay, because the baby's parents asked the guy to throw their baby overboard, in celebration, and probably a little bit of rage. This ceremony is performed every single year. Infants under the age of 2 are brought up to the top of a building and dropped from 30 to 50 feet to be caught on a sheet held by a group of men below, hopefully. This is a tradition that began 700 years ago when infants were dying constantly and medicine was a myth. According to these legends, a saint had advised parents to show their faith in the gods by throwing their sick babies from the roof of a shrine. If their faith was strong enough, divine intervention would provide a safety net in the form of a miracle. I think we just figured out why so many babies died during this time. At some point, everyone came to their their senses and stopped trying to make their babies fly. They took this legend and turned it into a ritual, a celebration of life. This fall apparently brings the child good luck, health, and longevity to the child, as well as some deep-rooted trauma. 200 infants are thrown every single year. Even couples get in on it, throwing themselves down in the hopes that the fall will bring them their own luck to have children at some point in the future. And those children will also be yeeted from the shrine. Finger-cutting ritual. If you ever meet a woman from the Dani tribe, don't try and get her to hold anything while you get the camera. They're not really able to hold anything given all of the missing fingers. But this is not some freak accident, this is something they're committed to. When a family member dies in the Dani tribe, the women will gather together to take part in a pretty rough grieving process. They tie a string tightly around the upper part of their finger, holding it there for 30 minutes until the circulation is completely cut off. Now, I should warn you, there are no health and safety precautions in this part of the world, which means they have to use whatever is sharp enough to butcher themselves, or more commonly, get someone else to do it because, well, they can't hold the knife. The Dani women will use literally anything they have at their disposal. Now, usually that's a stone axe or sharp bamboo, but whatever it is, they just rip that finger right off, using traditional herbs to dress the wound and cauterize it to create this unique sausage-like stub. But the severed finger isn't just decorative now. The Dani women will go and bury or burn it as an offering to honor ancestral spirits, because that's what this ritual is all about. This ancient custom has been passed down for centuries, with the belief that removing the finger is a symbol of the emotional pain of losing a loved one. But the Indonesian government thinks it's weird to cut your finger off in grief. They think it's a step too far, and they've done everything they can to ban it, arguing that it's a violation of human rights. So now the Dani people are grieving the loss of the tradition. Which body part do you think they cut off for that? Famadihana. Back in the 17th century, locals in Madagascar were convinced that their ancestors were haunting them, or at least they weren't entirely dead. Now, they knew that their loved ones' remains were still decomposing. They hadn't yet completely rotted to nothing. So they put two and two together and realized that their loved ones would be around until they were nothing but bone, which meant they were going to get some bad juju aimed at them if they didn't treat their ancestors well. So at some point, someone came up with a strategy. They called it Famadihana, summoning the family of the deceased at the ancestral tomb and exhuming the remains, wrapping them in fresh, expensive silk shrouds. I imagine that's partly to cover the smell of the half-rotted corpse. But to make sure that the decrepit corpse really felt taken care of, the family would carry the wrapped body overhead, all while dancing to live music that recalled the memory of the decomposing flesh inside the silk. And yet it still didn't feel like enough to these guys. Not enough respect had been paid to the dead. So they started filling in the corpses on what was going on in the family. The gossip, the divorces, the affairs, the kids they wish they didn't have. It became a reunion for the family. And when they had finally felt like the spirit of their loved one gave their blessing, they took the corpse back and put the decomposing remains back in the tomb in their expensive new robes. Because, good luck returning that sheet for a refund now. That tradition continues today. Every 5 to 7 years, families reunite to turn the bones, introduce the new family members to their late relatives, and check on the well-being of their ancestors in the afterlife. Because actually, this is all about preservation. The Malagasy people believe that the quality of the ancestors' remains is a sign of the ancestors' happiness in the afterlife. The smoother and cleaner the bones, the happier they are. The only problem is, it's pretty tough to do this. Madagascar is not a wealthy country, and silk shrouds are extremely expensive, and sadly, ancestors won't tolerate cotton. But as far as the Malagasy culture goes, nothing embodies the deep respect for their ancestors, the strong bonds between the living and the dead, quite like parading a half-rotted corpse through the streets. El Colacho. You're on vacation in the gorgeous village of Castrillo de Marica, a tiny little place in Spain, and suddenly some guy runs right past you in a red and yellow devil outfit. He says he can't talk. He has to go jump over a baby. 6 of them, actually. Yes, this is El Colocho, the baby jumping festival. This is the only place in the world where you'll find grown men jumping over babies to celebrate a Catholic holiday. More specifically, the Catholic feast of Corpus Christi, which has nothing to do with babies. You see, every year on the final Sunday of the feast, men will dress as devils with grotesque masks and run through town with whips, playfully terrorizing the locals who hurl abuse right back at them. But this is just the build-up. In the middle of the street, you'll find locals placing down a mattress on which parents will put down rows of newborn babies, all born in the last 12 months. And all, for the record, volunteered by the parents who are largely drunk on wine and making great decisions. When the men get there, they will jump right over the babies. It's not unlike the Spanish Bull Run, but with middle-aged men who are also semi-wasted. Once they've finished, a priest will come in and shower the babies with rose petals and bless them with good luck and protection for the rest of their lives. The idea is that jumping over the baby cleanses them of sin, protects them from illness, and guarantees their safe passage through life. But mostly, it's just a bit of fun for the middle-aged dudes who want to show they're still athletic. Feast of the Goat. It was the 18th century, and in Manganeses de la Polvorosa, Spain, the villagers noticed a goat up in the bell tower. This goat belonged to the local priest, and it had provided the poor villagers with milk for years. But, of course, the goat had no business in a bell tower. They can't ring the bell, for one. No, the goat had gone up there looking for food left behind for the doves, but the goat lost its footing, slipped, and falling out of the window, rapidly approaching certain death. Well, the villagers thought, this is the end. No more milk, no more goat. What are they gonna do? Fortunately, some of the bulky men of the village rushed in and let the goat use them as a crash mat. It was a miracle. The goat's horns were so small it only caused some minor internal bleeding in 2 grown men, which is pretty good. The town needed some excitement. The villagers were so moved by it that they decided to turn this into a yearly tradition, an honoring of the goat. So every year on the 4th Sunday of January, they would take a live goat up to the top of the bell tower and hurl it off the top. A crowd would gather below and catch it with a canvas sheet, and everyone was thrilled that they had another successful year without killing a goat. Once animal rights groups found out about it, they were furious. They said it was cruel. The villagers, however, didn't believe that. As they said, the goat only died like 5% of the time. I mean, you know, it's a numbers game. But in 1992, the Spanish government stepped in and said, no more live goat throwing. So the villagers stopped yeeting the goat. Well, they did a soft yeet. They lowered the goat on ropes, so technically not throwing it. It counts. But still, in 2000, the practice was banned entirely. Doesn't matter how the goat gets from the top to the bottom, it can't be a live goat. Well, don't worry. They didn't sub in some live animal to replace it. No, today they throw a plush toy goat from the bell tower, which is less dramatic, but probably better than unintentionally butchering a goat on the pavement.